So, we have a very special episode that we are doing today. It's an educational piece that we like to put together every once in a while. We call them Fireside Chats. And we've done this before, and I've got some amazing guests that are with me today to really talk about the education that's going on in the cancer clinical trial research space all across the globe. And with me today, I have Dr. Wee Gan, and he is the director of cancer clinical trials at Austen Health and the medical oncologist at Melbourne University down in Australia. He is also part of ABCARA, which we are going to be talking about in a second. And next to him is Dr. Greg Stein, who is the co-founder and CEO of Curtana Pharmaceuticals, who you should all be very familiar with because I talk about them quite a bit, and the clinical trial CT179 they have coming up. Now, what's great about what we're talking about today is that there's actually a beautiful partnership going on between ABCARA and Curtana Pharmaceuticals and the launch of their CT179 clinical trial, which will be starting very, very soon down in Australia. So we're going to launch into this, Dr. Gan, from there. And what I'd like to really focus on first is tell us a little bit more about ABCARA, the mission of ABCARA, and how you define excellence in cancer clinical trial research.
Thank you and good morning. So I think ABCARA we was created about 5 years ago, and it's been a wonderful and true collaboration between myself, who is a doctor, a medical oncologist who focuses on treating people with brain tumors, with someone that I've been working with for a long time, which is Professor Brian Day, who is a scientist that's doing a lot of research into brain cancers as well. And so Kara probably had two main missions, really. We identified that there wasn't really an organization that represented all the scientists who are specifically working in this space, and we felt that was really important because it's a cancer that we can talk about that really we need to make some progress for the patients, right? And then I think the next part of it, but excellence here was I think for the progress, we need to really understand that the brain is a unique organ, and therefore brain cancers are unique cancers. And if we don't do the science that is specifically for that, I think it's going to hold back progress. So really, we brought together a group of people who were deeply committed and very experienced in this area to try and accelerate progress. And then importantly, I think what's been great is that I've joined really, Greg and Brian have worked together for a long time on the science side. And my part is to help them get this amazing new drug into the clinic. So that's what we're trying to do. Mhm.
So now what do you see? What are the trends that are taking place down in Australia currently in the areas of brain cancer research that you are excited about?
Yeah, look, I think we are, although we are far away from, the US as I were, and really for the rest of the world, we have a wonderful, a close-knit community where I think we work very closely together. And uh, that, although that, and that really means that we can get stuff done quickly, really. The other thing is that our government set up, our regulatory environment is also very flexible. And this, I think, is good because it means that, again, we can do things that are more innovative, more quickly, just because of that environment. And also, we know everybody, so I think that that really helps in getting things done. And proof of that is of recent times, we've had a lot of trials, a very innovative trials start up in Australia and then often spread out to the rest of the world. Therefore, we're really trying to move the needle here by doing top-notch clinical trials for brain cancer patients.
What stuck what stood out to me was when you said that your regulatory system is very flexible. That's not something that you really find in the US. So that kind of that perked me up a little bit. I'm like, really? I didn't even know that. I'm really excited about this partnership because, as we've stated before, ABCARA is this amazing organization that has really brought like-minded individuals to the table, and you're all focused on the same goal and the same thing, which is to really find innovative, creative ways to treat very aggressive and hard to treat cancers like brain cancer. And that is really your primary focus. But another big piece of this is your partnership with Curtana Pharmaceuticals. So Why have you guys developed what brought you guys together for this partnership, and how is it vital to the CT-179 clinical trial?
Well, so it's interesting in that we had been working with Brian for several years on the preclinical side and doing he did a lot of work in his lab with CT-179, published a paper last year in Nature Communications. We're working on another manuscript that we're going to submit for publication as well. And as we were getting close to getting ready to think about where we were going to do the clinical trial, we had initially scoped it out here in the US.
Mhm.
And Brian said, "Hey, I happen to be the co-director of the Australian Brain Cancer Research Alliance, and we'd like to, basically bid on the trial." So I met and they gave us a proposal. Um, and I think there are several positive reasons why we chose to run the trial in Australia. Um, Number one, uh, they're just great people, easy to work with. The availability of patients, because that's always an issue, is,
Mhm.
are there patients? Because there's more trials running in the US, so getting access to patients can be a challenge. Um, Cost is an issue. Their ability to run trials is much more cost effective
Hmm.
than in the US. So we're doing it at a significantly reduced budget than what it would have cost us to do here in the States. And then there's the regulatory side, um, but without sacrificing any quality. I mean, the
Mm.
quality is at least as good as what's available here in the US. So it was really not a hard decision for us to go with working with ABCARA and Dr. Gann and his colleagues.
Mm.
So, Dr. Gann, what is the function and the role that you guys will be playing within this clinical trial as it gets ready to start enrolling patients?
Yeah. I mean, if I could just expand a little bit on what Greg was saying just then.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that if you're in this space of drug development, one of the things that Australia here is actually very well known for our phase one capability. We are well renowned for that. And that's really where the first step where you take a drug into the clinic. So I think that that was another thing that, because when you do that, you want to do it carefully, right? They're new drugs and these are vulnerable patients. So I think it was great to marry that up with the interest that we have. And by chance, aside from my two areas of passion, aside from one is brain tumors, but I'm also do a lot of phase one trials. And it was great to bring that experience when I was talking to Brian and Greg, really.
Mhm.
Um, so what I'll be doing is that I'll be what they call the coordinating principal investor. I will be sort of helping Katana and ABCARA to oversee the trial. And we will have 6 sites around Australia. So we're trying to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. And this will mean that, not only will it help the trial in terms of recruiting efficiently, but we really did want to there's such a lack of options for these patients. We want to make it as available, as widely available as possible. And you may know Australia is actually quite a geographically large country, but in fact, a lot of patients are often on the seaboard.
Mhm.
So what we'll do is that we one of the 6 sites will be my own hospital where I will directly look after the patients and treat them on study. But
Okay.
I'll also work with the doctors at the other 5 sites to manage that.
Okay.
We will then obviously be working very closely with Katana
Mhm.
to manage the trial. And I think, and Greg, you might want to speak to. So obviously it's a little bit complicated with the different organizations, but Greg has selected one of the research organizations I work at, the Olivia Newton-John Cancer Research Institute, to help administer this on the Australian side.
Mhm.
So so with these trials, it's been a great collaboration, but it's also a little bit complicated, but it's something that we've done before, so we think that this will work quite well.
So now, for those who are watching that don't understand how clinical trials work, we talk a lot about phase zeros, phase ones, phase twos. You mentioned that Australia is a huge proponent and has a huge strength in phase one clinical trials. Either one of you can answer this, but why don't we let the audience know what's the difference between a phase one and a phase two clinical trial? Does it just come down to participant enrollment? What are the other factors that decipher a phase one and a phase two? And if you can, length of time between a phase one and a phase two, because I get that question quite a bit from a lot of patients.
Look, I think these are very theoretical, but in the classic concept, phase one, as I was mentioning, is where you take the drug for the first time from the lab into people, really. And that's a delicate step, really. Like you do all the great science, you do all the checking, but at the end of the day, until you put it into people, you really don't know what's necessarily going to happen. And phase one is all about making that transition safely and efficiently. And a key to that is to really understand what is the optimal dose for in people, what's
Mhm.
the best dose that we take forward, and understand how it affects people. So that's really a safety and dose finding. Phase two is where you trying to get a signal to see whether what patients the drug is going to be most effective in,
Mhm.
and then phase three is usually where you randomize and that's a placebo. That's a very broad statement to see whether it's it's effective or not. So we are helping to take the CT-179 into patients and define the optimal dose.
Mhm.
Now, the interval between phase one and phase two, it's hard to say because it depends on what happens actually in the trial. But I think that Katana has really tried to accelerate because this particular trial will do three different parts at once. And the first part will be to make sure we get the right dose when we just use the drug alone.
Mhm.
The second part, importantly, is to add it to the standard treatment,
Mhm.
so that will accelerate getting into phase two and phase three. And the third part is a slightly more technical part where we're actually getting a lot of samples at the same time to make sure we understand what the drug is doing in humans. So we're really trying to compress several steps into the one trial here when it gets started later this year.
So now,
Greg, did you want to add anything to that? Or yeah.
No, no, as usual, you are very eloquent and covered the topic quite well.
Greg, why don't you tell us a little bit? We've discussed this before, but just to remind everybody and to refresh people, tell us a little bit about what CT-179 is and what the objective and the goal is for this clinical trial
Mhm.
as you guys are getting ready to start up. And I will preface this by saying that you guys have not started the trial yet, but you guys are very close to starting the trial, and phase one is going to start in Australia with the hope that as it moves into phase two, we'll start bringing on sites in the US as well. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what CT-179 is, its importance in the brain cancer space?
So I think a simple way to look at this is, and what initially got me interested in this particular developing a drug against the target that we're going after, which is called OLIG2, OLIG2, which is a protein that is involved in normal brain development. But then once your brain's developed, it's not expressed except in a very limited number of neural stem cells. But it's not in the bone marrow, it's not in your liver, it's not in other organs. And what it does early on is it drives growth of the brain and tells it what cell lines to go into. And then it drives the growth of the tumor and it drives the proliferation of it like it was a new brain developing, right? So it's just growing rapidly. And so the opportunity was if one could develop a drug that hit this protein, very selectively, you could hit the tumor quite hard, but not have effects on other tissues that don't express OLIG2. And so that was the original goal, was
Mhm.
to develop a drug that had that selectivity that got into the brain, because 95+% of cancer drugs never cross what we call the blood-brain barrier. And so we were successful in doing that. The drug is very selective just for OLIG2. It's a tablet, so it's an oral drug. It readily crosses the blood-brain barrier, so we know it gets to the tumor. So it has all the right drug-like properties that we want. So we're really quite excited about the opportunity here because we have a drug that is going after something that's it's really a master switch
Mm.
for the tumor, but isn't in normal brain function and isn't elsewhere in the body. So we hope that we can really, impact the tumor significantly without having a lot of the typical side effects that people think about when they think about cancer drugs, right? So losing your hair and all the other side, all kinds of
Cognitive
nasty side effects that
deficits.
come with it.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping, and we believe that at the therapeutic doses, the drug should be quite well tolerated. So that's the what we want to confirm in this phase one trial, which is really about demonstrating safety and understanding how the drug acts in humans,
Mhm.
um, for the first time.
Mhm. So, yeah, I mean, to paint a picture for anybody who watches, it's really what we're trying to do is see how an innovative trial and drug like CT-179 behaves and interacts with the body. Can the body adapt? Can the body start training itself as a drug is introduced into a human being for the first time? And then how does the body respond to that? And that's what these clinical trials are for. And they're a necessity. Unfortunately, it's a necessity to have clinical trials like these, to have innovative clinical trials like these when it comes to talking about something like brain cancer, which is a very rare aggressive cancer, and it is extremely difficult to treat. We have to think outside the box. We have to be aggressive in our approach. We have to be creative. We have to be innovative. And that's exactly what these two gentlemen who are with me today are trying to do. So let me bring the question kind of back around a little bit to investing and finances and impact investing, because at the end of the day, we can't have trials like this without funding for clinical trials like this. So, what is the importance of impact investing, of having funding rounds for a trial like this? And why, the necessity of this in clinical trials, such as CT 179, it's vital. And so, why is it so vital to the work that you guys are both doing?
It might help to talk about Cogno and their role, who Cogno is and what their role is and how they're able to help support the trial.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, trials are necessary, but also they need to be funded, really. And what we do find is, so I think that understandably, a lot of attention with drug companies and all is often on the more common cancers, really. Um, but we're really trying to make a difference in our specific patch, and I think that's where it's important to have groups that will focus on these very important cancers as well. So Cogno is the Australian cooperative group that really focuses on this on doing clinical trials in brain cancer. And so this particular trial is a collaboration with Cogno to provide some funding for that, as well as with Curtana to provide the rest of the funding for this clinical trial.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, for rare cancers, funding can be really very, very, very tight, as it often is for all trials.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't get the funding, we're not going to make an impact. And then I don't know if you know, but brain cancer is one of the few cancers where we've not really seen any progress in the last 20 or 30 years, even though in every other cancer type, I think that there has.
Yeah.
And part of that is it, as I think I come back to, it's a really the brain is unique and brain cancers are unique. Immunotherapy, unfortunately, really hasn't had the success it had elsewhere. So we need to get drugs that are bespoke for the brain tumor. And I think that's what CT-179 does. What I really am so enthusiastic about it's not saying this works in other cancers and this will work in brain tumors. It's saying this is what makes a brain cancer, and we're going to target that with a drug that's been specifically designed. That's what excited Cogno, and that's excited myself, and that's why we're doing this trial. And so everyone's come in because they believe in it, and money talks. People have put money into this as well, so there's belief there, in my opinion. Yeah.
I'd like to kind of just tag on to the end of that, for anybody who, um, does do impact investing or is an investor or is looking at funding options, the ROI, the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. And your ROI comes down the road when you know that the trial, that a drug is successful, it's helping patients. I mean, ultimately, that is all of our goal at the end of the day, is to get patients further along on this journey with a cancer, like you said, Dr. Gann, that has not had any significant improvement, development, or motion forward in more than 30 years. There has been, the standard of care is just not working. And so it's
Mm.
kind of brought us to the place that we are all at here, where we need to think creatively and innovatively. And it's great to see foundations and people like Cogno, organizations and institutions like them that are willing to work within the brain cancer space. And that is the type of backing that you guys need, that clinical trials need. They're expensive to run. There's labs, there's people, there's patient recruitment, there's marketing, there's hospital systems that need to be pulled in. It's not easy to run a clinical trial. There's so many moving parts, and I think sometimes we forget that, depending on what side of this we're on. And so I'm
Yeah.
extremely excited about this clinical trial. Like we said, it is starting in Australia first, for multiple reasons that Dr. Greg Stein has already laid out for us. But it's something that it's innovative, and it really targets something very specific to how brain cancer feeds. And the interesting thing about this, and what I've been learning more and more, in talking and working with so many of you, is that there are different receptors, different proteins that are feeding brain cancer. And when we can turn their food supply off, the food supply off for it, the hope is that the brain cancer dies off with it. So I'm really excited about this. I know that there's going to be more news coming out about this. Greg, are there any press releases or anything that you want to share with viewers now that have come out, or is there anything that's going to be rolling out soon that people can be kind of keeping an eye out for?
Um, I anticipate that soon, the trial will be posted on clinicaltrials.gov.
Okay.
And so there's more information there about how the trial's designed and who all the people are that are involved.
Mhm.
People can always go to our website. There's information about the science, access to the scientific papers. We talk about the trial there. Um, and yeah, hopefully we'll have a press release sometime soon announcing that the first patient has been dosed and we're underway.
Okay. And Dr. Gann, if anybody wants to learn about ABCARA or the work that you're doing down in Melbourne and in Australia, where can people find out more about the organization and the work that you guys are doing down there?
Yeah, so I think that if they search for us, ABCARA, ABCARA, we will come up with where that's we're the only people online with that. So we have a website with our contact details and with the details of the trial as well. There's also Cogno, where this study is also being supported by Cogno. So the Cogno website, if you search for that, is also going to have all of this information. And can I just say, I think we this is something that's a first for us. It's been wonderful to work with Curtana, but I think that the partnership is a model we want to progress, because it's worked really well between sort of companies in the US using the expertise and some of the advantages we have here in Australia, and Cogno, because we are a nationwide organization. We can recruit patients very quickly, as we recently did with the MAGMA study that was showcased at the American Society of Clinical Oncology meeting.
Hmm.
So I think that I'm really very much hoping this will be the first of many, many trials being run with Katana and other partners.
I'm excited for this as well. And this just goes to show, this is a very perfect example to show that brain cancer crosses all borders and all boundaries. There is no
Mm.
race, no country, no nation. that is not impacted by this disease. I know that worldwide in the US, there are over 25,000 a year diagnosed. Worldwide, there are over 300,000 cases diagnosed each year. This is not a stagnant number. This is every single year. And so that is not a small number to sneeze at. It is something that is very serious. And I'm excited for this clinical trial. It's a partnership we've had with Curtana. We are trying very hard to make sure that the information is getting into the right hands. And so I will have all of this information on here for people to see. And as news continues to roll out about the trial starting, we will make sure that that gets posted right away. But I'm very grateful to both of you for your time, for giving us this education and some information about the partnership, which I think is vitally important. And we will be posting more information about ABCARA. People can also find out about Cogno and ABCARA on curtanapharma.com,
Mm.
which is the website for Curtana Pharmaceuticals. I will make sure that it's also linked on my website as well so that it'll be hyperlinked. You can go click right over, hover right over the logo, and it'll take you directly to ABCARA's organization site, and it'll show their mission, what their goals are, and it's really amazing that you guys are putting so much energy behind this. So thank you guys both so much for your time, your efforts, and for the education today.
Thanks, Shannon. Really nice to talk with you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you all. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.